Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone, and good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another Dhamma Q&A session. Today is day 10. Today we're going to be discussing and looking at questions about sammā-ājīva. Sammā-ājīva means right livelihood. And right livelihood is often ignored in different contexts. Probably the ideas, perceptions that revolve around about right livelihood, I would say sammā-ājīva is different, because some people say this is right livelihood, some people say this is living, but we know livelihood means a means of securing the necessities of the life, while living means an income sufficient to live on, or the means of earning it. So I don't see any problem in calling sammā-ājīva to be livelihood, because we all always call the state of enlightenment that an arahant attains as arahanthood. When it comes to the Buddha's enlightenment, we call it Buddhahood, so there's no harm in using right livelihood. Now, one may wonder why this comes after sammā-kammanta. Now, we know that the Noble Eightfold Path start from sammā-diṭṭhi. Sammā-diṭṭhi means that one has to understand with a proper view about what to do, what to talk, and what to act on. So diṭṭhi actually leads someone to practice thoughts. We call them intentions, sammā-saṅkappa. And those sammā-saṅkappas, what we call right thoughts, lead someone to practice vāca, right speech. So they are interconnected. And sammā-vāca leads someone to practice sammā-kammanta. So right speech with right view, right intentions lead someone to practice right actions. So when someone practices, when someone has been practicing sammā-kammanta for some time, now this is the place where one has to focus on the proper right livelihood. Right livelihood is also twofold. So one is secular, I would say mundane, while the other one is extra mundane, I would say transcendental. So we had to discuss these two, and we will be using the famous popular sutta called Mahācattārisaka Sutta, which is appeared in Majjhima Nikaya, 117 Sutta. Dhamma folks, so if you have any questions about right livelihood, because this applies to all of us, regardless of being a monastic or a layperson, and what you do to live, it doesn't necessarily mean money. It could be different objects that you might use to make your living. So you may have your own questions. So please type in your questions under the comments, so I will get into them sometimes after the basic questions. Now, if you take a look at this Mahācattārisaka Sutta, it clearly defines what a sammā-ājīva, right livelihood. Katamocha bhikkhave micchā-ājīvo. Now, actually, we had to understand the wrong side of right livelihood, which is called by micchā-ājīva. Kuhana, lapana, nemitikata, nippesikata, labhena labang nijaginsanata. Okay, so what is micchā-ājīva? What is wrong livelihood? And the wrong livelihood includes a couple things. Kuhana. Kuhana means scheming. In other words, we can say hypocrisy, scheming or hypocrisy. Now, scheming simply means given to or involved in making secret and underhanded plans. So, hypocrisy. And lapana means talking. So, you can make a good living, right livelihood, or you can make your wrong livelihood by talking, right? The third way of practicing wrong livelihood is hinting, which is called by nimitta or nemitikata. And the fourth type of wrong livelihood includes nipesikata, belittling, kind of belittle, underscore, things, objects. And the final type of wrong livelihood is pursuing gain with gain. So that person can use gains to gain another gain, right? Called labhena labang niji nijigin sanata. Okay, so let's take a look at the the commentary about what this means, especially this wrong livelihood style. So what are the kind of ways people practice wrong livelihood? The first one is kuhana. Now, kuhana simply means hypocrisy or scheming. The commentary defines kuhana this way. Kuhanati adisu tividhena kuhanavattuna. Kuhanavattuna lokam etaya kuhayanti. Vimhapayanti iti kuhana. So there are three ways someone can scheme other people. Someone can be hypocritic to other people. Okay, there are three ways. Now let's see what they are, because it is really important to all of us, right? Whether we already practice this wrong livelihood or not. These are the three ways of scheming or practicing hypocrisy, which we should not practice. We should avoid. The first one is pachaya patisevana, hypocrisy or scheming in use of requisites. Now, we know these were actually, essentially related to monastic life, but you can apply this to your own life. I mean, your lay life in the way possible. Now, there are people who might show or display that when someone is to give something to somebody, especially for example, let's take a monastic setup. Someone is to offer a robe to a monk, and then the monk uses this kind of way to accept the robe. What is the use of such expensive robes for a bhikkhu monk? Only the pansakula robe made of refuse rags is proper for me, right? So the monk or nun likes it, but doesn't want to accept that he or she likes it. Kind of insinuatively try to get it. But the person who is offering that particular robo thing might be schemed, because she doesn't know what's going on. So in the same way, we might see in lay society, in lay people lives, when somebody is going to give something to you, you probably might not accept that in the first place. You are trying to use different strategies to accept it. So this is called scheming. The first part of kuhana, what you call by, you are going to be hypocritic, or you are going to be scheming in terms of requisites. I mean, especially requisites mean food, clothing, medicine, and shelter. So when you deal with these 4 requisites, regardless of you are a monk or nun or a layperson. If you are trying to insinuate this way, that means you are practicing wrong livelihood, especially the hypocrisy, kuhana style of that wrong livelihood. The second type of kuhana, hypocrisy or scheming is sammā-ājīva. Now, sammā-ājīva means, now there were instances when people were to offer things to monks and nuns, they were trying to talk about untrue, false spiritual attainments, saying that we are very close to attaining sotapanna, sakadagami, anagami, arhat, these kind of things to people. So people get deceived by these monks and nuns. This can happen to other people too, like let's say you being a lay person, probably you might brag about achievements you haven't achieved to other people. So other people think that you are almost going to get that. So you are kind of like, scheming those people, because you are talking about an achievement that you haven't still attained, you haven't still achieved. So you are scheming that person, those kind of people, group of people. So the second type of kuhana or scheming is you are either saying things that didn't happen, or you are, especially the contents of those things that didn't happen, are attainments or achievements that everybody likes, especially the people who are going to support you. So you are trying to display them to them, saying that I'm very close to attaining spiritual stages, or I'm very close to achieving these achievements, so that they will be scheme. Call it sammā-ājīva. The third type of kuhana is iriyapata santhapana. Now, iriyapata santhapana means there were instances where monastics, change their postures to deceive people, saying that we have these powers of levitation, so on and so forth. Now, this can be seen in some lay people too. Especially those who are doing fortune telling, astrology. They kind of like, some of them, not everybody, some of them might do the same thing. So kind of telling people we have these powers, spiritual powers, we can do this and that, and they are deceiving people. So this is the third type of kuhana. So there are 3 types of kuhana, because there are few things that by which people practice wrong livelihood, sammā-ājīva. The first thing is kuhana. So this kuhana, which you call by scheming or hypocrisy, has 3 elements. The first element is people scheme, or people are hypocritic, people scheme other people in terms of requisites, 4 requisites. The second element is people deceive or scheme other people based on things that they have not achieved, could be achievements or spiritual attainments. Third element of kuhana, what you call scheming, is deceiving or scheming people by telling them that they have superpowers which they haven't really gotten so far. So this is what we call by the first type of sammā-ājīva, kuhana. So kuhana means hypocrisy or scheming. Okay, so somebody can say swindling, deceiving, right? That is called kuhana. Okay, the second type of sammā-ājīva, what you call by wrong livelihood, is lapana. Now, lapana means talking. So there are people who deceive other people by talking. Now, if you can see commercial advertisements and marketing, a lot of people do that, right? Because they find out someone like a celebrity or someone who is a famous person, and then asking that person to talk on behalf of their product or whatever company, organization. But people getting deceived because of his or her talking, right? Not even that. Sometimes you individually might deceive people by talking, right? So how does it happen? Labha sakkaratika hutva etaya lapantiti lapana. Now, the reason why people deceive other people by talking, the lapana. So this first one is kuhana, second one is lapana. I mean, someone who practices wrong livelihood. So why people deceive other people by talking means that they wanted to get gains from those people. Now this can happen in many societies, even in the West or the East, right? So there are people who can deceive easily by talking. No, I know this one, that one, I know this and that, so you can use that one, you can do this thing. So actually their words are really nice, sweet, and so dearly, but their purpose, their ulterior motive is different. So the second way of practicing sammā-ājīva, wrong livelihood, is talking, right? So if you are someone like that, you need to stop that. Use your speech for wholesome purposes. I think this is what we talked a couple of weeks back about sammā-vāca, right? So we never we should never use speech for deceiving other people. So second way of deceiving other people is what you call lapana, which is what you call by talking. And then the third type of wrong livelihood, sammā-ājīva, is nemittikata. Now, nemittikata means hinting. There were instances where people hint, especially some monastics, or hinted to gain some other gains. Now, there was a very famous story, Now, this story is about a monk called Kulupaka Bhikkhu, the story of a Kulupaka Bhikkhu. Now, one day there was a monk who was going for his pindapata, arms round, and he went into a house, and the woman in the house told the monk that we don't have anything, in house, in this house. So let me, go find one of my friends to find some food for you. Actually, this house already has food and other things, so that although the lady doesn't want to offer for different reason. During the time she went to find things as promised, the monk went inside. Monk saw different things, food items, and when she came back, she said, Bhante, I couldn't find any food items even outside, even in my friend's place. And then this is how that monk used nemittikata, what he called by hinting by making signs or giving indications with an evil motive to induce, dana. So monks and nuns, they are not supposed to do that. Just give me a second. There's something that I need to fix on the page. Okay, so sorry for that. That was a technical glitch. And then what happened? The monk was using nemitikata, using different signs to express that, you need to give the food insights, but he used a different way to express. This is how he used. As I came to this house for alms around, I saw on the way a snake as big as sugarcane in the corner behind the door. To drive it away, I looked for something and found a stone, which was as big as a lump of jaggery in uh, your bowl. The monk was actually alluding to the bowl the woman has. When I hurled the stone at the snake, its hood spread out to the size of the piece of flattened dried fish in your basket. When the snake opened its mouth to bite the stone, it showed its teeth and fangs, which were like the rice grains in your pot. The foamy saliva mixed with poison of the angry snake was like the butter in your jar. Caught inextricably in the web of words, which glaringly indicates the monk's wish, the woman thought to herself, "Here is no way to deceive the shaven head." And she reluctantly gave him the sugar cane, cooked the rice, and offered it to him together with the butter, jaggery, and dried fish. Now, this story says the monk used different signs to get her to offer food, which is not good. This is what we call by nemitti kata. Now, if you are someone who is using what you call by signs and indications, to others who you really want to get something done, and then subsequently, if they are going to offer something to you, subsequently if they are going to do that particular activity thing to you, or the help to you, that is not good. That is not a good way of practicing livelihood. That is why it is called wrong livelihood. The fourth type of wrong livelihood is nippesi kata. Nippesi kata means belittling. Sometimes there are people who who belittle other people to gain things from them, right? There are people, in this society who abuse other people so that they feel very embarrassed, so that they're going to offer something to them. They're going to belittle what other people do, so that the person who is already generous, you know, what do you call increases one's generosity. So there are ways people deceive other people by belittling. Now, for example, pursuit of gain by wiping off or grinding or pulverizing the virtuous qualities of a lay devotee, like pursuit of perfume by grinding or pulverizing scented material. So sometimes there were monastics who practice this wrong livelihood. So using another person to induce the other person, or to promote, to motivate the other person to get what he or she has, using another person, using a third person. So when it comes to you in your lay life, what you can do is you should never belittle other people to get something from another person, because belittling is very bad. So that is not sammā-ājīva. That is what we call by micchā-ājīva. Now, this can involve sarcasm. Sarcasm is something that the person who is practicing micchā-ājīva may use, because when people are sarcastic, they might use different words to, push the other person to get something what he or she has. Okay, so the last type of micchā-ājīva style is pursuing gain with gain. Labena labang nijagi santi. Magganti pariye santi iti labena labang nijagin sanata. Tesam bhavo labena labang nijagin sanata. So that means pursuit of gain with gain motivated by covetousness, right? So there are people who may use this thing as well, this particular bad habit too, bad way of practicing ājīva. Now, one example that can apply to monastic life is seeking for more food from another house by giving away the few offerings he has already received. Can be labina labanijigins. There are ways some people practice ajiva, like even in lay life. You are giving some things or objects to somebody, but expecting to get double, quadruple what you gave, right? So even when it comes to your lay life, you should never think that you are giving something and you are expecting that person to repay in you know so many quantities, because you know uh, behind the scene what you have is that you are trying to push that person to give you uh, more things as much as you think. So these five kinds of styles of ajiva or ways of ajiva, uh, they are actually wrong. They are miccha ajivas. Share with you again those five. Kuhana means scheming or deceiving. Sorry, scheming or being hypocritic. Lapana means talking, but you are talking to deceive other people. Nemitikata means you are using indications or signs to deceive other people to get something. Actually, you practice kuhana, scheming to get something out of those people. You practice lapana, you use lapana, talking to get something out of those people. You deceive other people to get something from them. And nipesikata, that means you are belittling other people because you want to get something out of those people. And the fifth one, labena labang nijikin sanata, you are trying to use one gain to get another gain because uh, because your main approach is to deceive those people in a different way, maybe slightly or maybe secretly, so that they never know they are giving you things in the way you expect. So these five ways of ajiva, what you call livelihood, are not uh, recommended, approved by the Buddha in the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay. Any questions so far? See, any questions so far? Now, let me read how it was given in the Mahachattarajika Sutta. Therein, bhikkhu's right view comes first. And how does right view come first? One understands wrong livelihood as wrong livelihood and right livelihood as right livelihood. This is one's right view. So, in order for someone to understand right livelihood, sammā-ājīva, one needs samma-ditti. As we discussed, samma-ditti helps us to practice all the factors actually. And what bhikkhus is wrong livelihood? Scheming, kuhana, talking, lapana, hinting is what you call by nemitikata, belittling called by what you call by nipesikata, pursuing gain with gain means labena labang nijikin. So these are the five wrong livelihood patterns. And what monks is right livelihood? Right livelihood, I say, is twofold. There's right livelihood that is affected by taints, partaking of merit, ripening in the acquisitions, and there is right livelihood that is noble, taintless, supramundane, a factor of the path. Now, people like us who haven't attained spiritual attainments, we practice the mundane type of right livelihood. That is what we discuss with these five. So if you are a person who does not practice kuhana, lapana, nemittikata, nippesikata, labena labang, nijikinsanata, then you are practicing the mundane right livelihood. That means you are practicing the mundane right livelihood. But then what is the right livelihood that is being practiced by the arahants, those who have already attained Nibbana? And what bhikkhus is right livelihood that is noble, taintless? It's noble taintless, supramundane. Actually, Buddha never uses the word noble to the mundane part of the factors. Now, we have mundane parts of the Noble Eightfold Path. Buddha never used noble. Buddha only uses the word noble to the transcendental part of the Noble Eightfold Path, which means the part that is being practiced by the Arahants. And what bhikkhus is right livelihood? That is noble, taintless, that means no asavas, supramundane, a factor of the path. The desisting from wrong livelihood. I would say the desisting. Now you are not trying to, be on that unnecessary wrong livelihood. Let me find out the Pali word for that. Katamocha bhikkave sammā-ājīvo ariyo anāsavo lokuttaro maggango. Yako bhikkave ariya cittassa anāsava cittassa ariya magga samangino. Ariya maggang bhavetu miccājīva ārati. Now this is the word ārati, desisting. Okay, the desisting from wrong livelihood, and then virati, the abstaining, pativirati. So virati is abstaining, pativirati is what you call refraining. Veramani means so we said the desisting from wrong livelihood, the abstaining, refraining, abstinence from it in one whose mind is noble. So one has to, so the Arahants, they practice the right livelihood in couple different ways, higher ways. We call them the desisting, abstaining, refraining, and the abstinence from it. Now, people like us, be that lay people, monastics, they always struggling. Lay people might be struggling a lot, but even the monastics, they are in a highly commercialized world. People have to come and offer food, right? And the monastics are in a really struggling time in today's world because the people offer monasteries, people offer donations, right? So they are with money, right? It is of course, without any doubt, we have to accept. Because when somebody is giving a chunk of money, ton of money to monastics, and then, there are things that can happen. I'm not saying you should not offer, but, I'm trying to tell you that they are not the kind of monastics who lived at the time of the Buddha. So they have a bigger challenge in actually keeping up with donations and all these things. So that's why all they have to be very careful. They should not be a part of kuhana lapana nemitta kata nipesa kata labina labana jinsana. And being lay people, you should also not be a part of kuhana lapana nemitta kata nipesa kata labina labana jinsana. Because these 5 styles of living are not approved by the Buddha. Okay, now some people think sammā-ājīva means kind of jobs. Actually, they are not jobs. Buddha never talks about jobs, but in Anguttara Nikaya, we know that there is a sutta where Buddha talks about some of the jobs that one has to avoid. Avoid business in weapons, human beings, meat, intoxicants, and poison. So, if you can, it is a good thing because you feel that what you do as your job is good. So you're not involved in weapons. Human beings means kind of smuggling, human trafficking, meat, intoxicants, and poison. But don't worry if you are already in this kind of business. You may not be able to avoid that. For example, I would say somebody might be living in a city where a lot of casinos, gambling happens. So you can't find a job. out of that, because that's the main business in your city, right? So there's no choice. Somebody might be living in a in a city where the main trade could be fishing. So you may have to sell fish and all that. So I'm not saying that you have to accept, you have to keep following, but there are some different issues with regard to jobs. So, but Buddha simply said, if you can, it's very good to avoid these kind of businesses, weapons, human trafficking, meat, intoxicants, and poison. But there may be some instances in today's world where you might not be able to skip these jobs for different reasons. So the first question somebody asked here is why an ethical job is necessary for us. Now, ethical jobs are really great, but sometimes oftentimes people are not able to find out an ethical job for different reasons. I mean, one of the reasons could be the place where they live. If you live in Canada up north, people have to depend on fish, right? Or kind of meat products. So maybe it depends on different places. So what I'm saying is that if you can make a choice, if you are really, I mean, there are people who are educated, who have their own comfort. If you are someone like that, you can easily make your choice. Okay, I'm doing an ethical job, so there are no harm involved with my job. But don't worry, at least you understand what you do. At the same time, you try to find different ways to, uh, get into an ethical job if it is possible. But if it is not possible, try to find out to do it in a better way, right? So I mean, we should never like weapons, human trafficking, meat, intoxicants, and poison. But there may be some instances where you can make a smooth transition from that kind of a job into an ethical job at a certain time. How about for monks and contemplatives? Now, I think in the Samanyapala Sutta or Brahmajala Sutta in Digha Nikaya, we find out some of the things that monks, I would say monastics, should not do. Now, a couple of things, including fortune telling, blood sacrifices. They are called as base or lowly arts. So they should not involve in some of these things. But for you, try to find an ethical job. But if you think you can, try to find a better way to make it, because people are almost like ingrained for finding their what you call desired favorite jobs, but they never look at the ethical side. So it's a good place to think about it. So I say that doing an ethical job is good, but if you can, try to find different ways to improve yourself, probably make a smoother transition. If you can, at least try to understand what I'm doing and how I can better myself and the other people who are benefiting that thing. Question number 2: are the jobs at the Buddha's time simpler than what people have to do in today's world? Yeah. I mean, if you take a look at of life 2,600 years ago, you know, uh, the jobs that people involved with, they were actually pretty much undoubtedly simpler than today's jobs. So you know they were really simple. But as time passes by, jobs have been complicated. If you take the job of a farmer, some other person, now they have to commit to this industrialized food economy, right? Now at that time, maybe a farmer is only catering to a small, you know, uh, audience, a small area of customers. But nowadays, farmer has to, uh, you know, work for this big market. I would say it's kind of an industrialized economy. So when it comes to an industrialized economy, there can have some adverse things, because people need, and that person has to facilitate for these demands. So I would say the jobs that the people had 2,600 years ago, they are simpler than today's ones. Probably what Buddha said in the sutta called, I would say, Panchavani Sutta, could be more appropriate to that time. But it doesn't say that you can't do that. Try to find the ethical elements of your job. Is sammā-ājīva only for working people? What about house husbands and housewives? That's an interesting question. Now, there are people, there are, of course, housewives and house husbands, right? So one of them is working and the other one is actually taking care of the house. Actually, it is not only relevant to someone who works, because ājīva living is not only focus on money. It could be focus on things you have, objects as well. Let's say there's a breadwinner, it could be wife or husband. That person brings money over to house. The person who is in the house has to manage that money, right? So that person has to properly use that money, properly execute things that are actually brought to house. Also, that particular person, could be the housewife or house husband, has to be very honest about inventory, the food items, house related things, right? Otherwise he or she might cheat the person who is earning money for the house, right? So that means it is not only about money. It's not only about the working professionals outside the house. It is also about the people who manage the house things, money and all that. So it is relevant to all of you. So even the monks and nuns, they may not earn money, but they are consuming what the people donate, right? So if they are not using them properly, if they are trying to swindle the devotees, that could be a problem. So it's not sammā-ājīva. Does this mean we have to avoid certain jobs? Well, looking at ethical elements, probably you might look at an ethical thing. As I said at the beginning, you might not be able to do that right away, but at least you can give it a try. Why the type of living related to Noble Eightfold Path? Why is the type of living related to Noble Eightfold Path? We all know jobs should not be an issue for practicing the Noble Path. Okay, a good question. Now, this is kind of a misconception. People think sammā-ājīva means types of jobs that Buddha recommended. Actually, it is not true. Sammā-ājīva means, how you should earn money, not the kind of job, right? So let's say you might be a working professional. You might be a worker. You might be working in a bank. I would say might be working in a different other field. But the most important thing is whether you are doing scheming, deceiving people by talking, belittling other people to gain something, using the gains to gain other things. So it doesn't matter what job you do, especially if it is an ethical job. That is why Buddha doesn't talk about the type of jobs under Noble Eightfold Path, but he talks about healthy ways to practice your living. Now, even you are a doctor, you have to practice the opposite of these five. You should not use scheming. You should not use talking to deceive patients. You should not belittle other people. You should not use indication signs to get gains from your patients. You should not use gains to get more gains, right? So you may be a doctor, you may be an engineer, you may be XYZ. The most important thing is not the profession you involve in, but how you do that job, how you do that particular role of your work. So that's why we cannot say Buddha meant certain jobs to practice. He said, you should not practice these 5 bad ways in your job. This is what the Buddha said. So Buddha never talks about certain jobs under sammā-ājīva. How different is the secular and non-secular right living? I think I already talked about it. When it comes to secular, what you call secular right livelihood, someone has to, get rid of those 5 bad ways in a job. And when it comes to transcendental, I would say supramundane right livelihood, one has to extremely abstain, refrain, desist from those 5. I mean, that automatically happens to with an arahant. So they don't need to desist a lot. They don't need to think about refraining, because it's already happening with them. But for us, when it comes to secular right livelihood, how do the commercial advertisements that we can see on social media or TV relate to sammā-ājīva? What if they publicize wrong information and ask people to buy? Yes, that's a big problem. That is what I said. They use celebrities. They use different things. Now, if you can take a look of some of the Facebook pages, some of the some of the big things, and we can see that people, very famous people, they are they are encouraging people to buy products. So people buy because that particular celebrity, just because of that particular person. Not even Facebook, I mean social media as a whole, right? So it's hyper commercial. So the thing is that I'm not saying it's wrong, it's bad, but you have to be careful, because you might only trust that particular person and then want to buy that particular thing. So when you are when you are hearing, listening, watching kind of a TV commercial, social media commercial, try to understand whether this is a part of Kuhana Lapanani Nitikata, Nipisikata, Labin Laban, that type of asking advertisement or not. What do you think about marketing and sammā-ājīva? Yeah, there's a huge connection, because people make money out of many things. That's why I'm saying to you that you need to do your own research about whether this is going to be a true or untrue. This is going to be something that is something being used by somebody else to deceive or cheat you or not. Is there a role we can play when it comes to our own vulnerabilities for bad things like addiction due to commercial advertisement? Yes, mindfulness. So we have to bring mindfulness to all events. That is the key part. Sammasati has to be everywhere, even to sammā-ājīva, right? So if you are not mindful, if you are only carried away by a famous person, if you are only carried away by a TV commercial, if you are only carried away by social media, that means you are you are not keeping up with your own mindfulness. So that is the key thing. So that could be your biggest vulnerability. So if you look at your vulnerabilities regarding miccā-ājīva, one of the main things is that you are lacking in mindfulness, so that you can understand what you should do when it comes to those eye-catching advertisements. Okay. What do you think about professions we choose that are messy mixture of good and bad consequences? Well, I think no job is, no job is included in the elements of, good only, because they all come in a combination with good and bad, because they are marketing. They're actually looking at an audience, right? So I'm asking you to look at the least harmful jobs, professions, so that you feel happy about what you do. The money that you are earning so hard. Okay. Any questions that you may have, please post them under comments so that I can answer them. What can we learn from Vyakappa Sutta about running an individual household livelihood? Okay, now Vyakappa Sutta is another sutta that is mentioned in one of the Nikayas. Probably, I think it's Anguttara Nikaya. Now, in this sutta, Buddha clearly says to Vyakappa, he's kind of a rich person. He says that he asks a question from the Buddha, how to balance, one's household livelihood. And the Buddha says that one has to have a very balanced livelihood in terms of, the budget. Let me read the translation. Herein, Vyakappa, a householder knowing his income and expenses, leads a balanced life, neither extravagant nor miserly, knowing that thus his income will stand in excess of his expenses, but not his expenses in excess of his income. So income and expenses, so they have to be, balanced. So expenses should not be exceeded the income, right? So balance is a key thing when it comes to right livelihood as well. That is something to learn from Vyakappa Sutta. Okay, so I don't see any other questions, but I will take a look at a few other questions too. Let me take a look. Many of us crave careers about which we can be wholeheartedly enthusiastic. But it can be a good thing to be in two minds about our jobs and to not identify with them too strongly. In Pali, the prefix samma means complete, perfected, rather than simply right. I mean, this is very, very famous because right could not be the true meaning of samma, even though we use it, because sometimes things are right but not morally good. Anyways, rather than simply right with its connotations of orthodox correctness. Thus, sammā-ājīva may mean something more like livelihood fully understood and rightly conducted with all its tensions. What do you think about this? Yeah, I mean, yeah, you may be right in looking at some of the jobs that you may have to do, but there should be an ethical element when it comes to the type of the job and what you do. Because I know there are people who complain about what they did in their early times. I don't want to mention their jobs, but they had to do some, things like, things that they can mention a lot. So that means if you think that the kind of work that will give to you regret or remorse or worry, you should not involve in that kind of a work in your life, because later on you might be very unhappy about what you did. So if we take a look back, I wanted to summarize. Sammā-ājīva simply means one has to avoid 5 types of micchā-ājīva. Micchā-ājīva has these 5 kinds of styles of deceiving other people. Kuhana means scheming or being hypocritic to others to get money or other gains. And nemitikata means lapana means talking to deceive other people. You are using speech to deceive other people to get something out of those things. That's the second wrong livelihood. Third, nemitikata. Nemitikata means indicating signs to get something out of those people. And nippesikata means, I would say, belittling, underscoring others to gain things, right? That is also kind of a deception, deceiving. Labena labang nijikinsanata means using existing gains you already have to gain more things from other people. So these 5 things must be avoided if you really want to practice sammā-ājīva, right livelihood. So Right livelihood has two parts. So the people like us practice the mundane right livelihood, which you call, lokiya, or mundane right livelihood. And those of arhants who have already attained nibbana, they practice the transcendental right livelihood, wherein they have no taints, defilement, so that they perfectly practice it. They probably might want to revisit what they practiced just before they attain nibbana. Okay, so let's wrap this up. Looks like there are no questions. May all the good karmas we've been accumulating so far be transferred to all the departed relatives who passed away in the name of all of us. May they be happy and peaceful. May they attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Idammi nyati nang hotu sukhita huntu nyatayo. Idammi nyati nang hotu sukhita huntu nyatayo. Idammi nyati nang hotu sukhita huntu nyatayo. Also, let's share all the good karmas with the deities, devas and nagas. May all the good karmas be shared by all the deities, nagas. May they be happy and peaceful. May they bless all of you for good health, long life, quality life, and all the prosperity. May they also attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Ittavata cha ammihi sambatan punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya akasattha ca bhummattha devanaga mahittika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkhantu lokasasanang chirang rakkhantu desanang chirang rakkhantu mang paranti. Finally, let's make a great wish. May all the good karmas we've been accumulating so far be helpful for all of us to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Abhivadana silisse nichang vadha pachayino chattaru dhamma vadhanti ayuvannu sukhang balang ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha Ato Nibbana Sampatti Iminati Saminjatu. So we have a couple more interviews coming up, and yesterday we did 2 interviews, and there's one interview coming up with a professor about Yasodhara. Now, Yasodhara is a very famous story, but we never thought about someone who can retell the popular story called Yasodhara without offending the Buddhist audience. So this will be coming up probably in the first or second week of May. So please stay tuned with that too. Have a good night. Take care.